this is going to be another episode of Snake and Banter. Our guest for this one is going to be reigning major champion. Also did have a life game in that final. magixx from Team Spirit, who I actually think if you didn't even know who this guy was, you hadn't heard him on camera. I think if you just look at his Twitter bio, it would tell you the sort of personality he has, because he actually has one of the funniest Twitter bios. It just says, drinking Coke without any pressure, which is a shout out, if people don't know, to that old like Nico rant from like 2020 when he kept getting banged out by like Sirison from Big or something, but we're all at home because of COVID. And then that was like his sort of explanation as to why that wouldn't happen on land basically. So I like it. Okay, obviously magixx, one thing I think people appreciate is not only do you have a personality, by the way, that goes a long way compared to some of your teammates, but also you obviously actually kind of understand meme culture too. You kind of have that like Zoomer sense of humor, right?
Well, there is nothing I can comment on what you have said just. Actually, did you say that this beer has came from Nika?
Yeah, that was a joke. He made some joke like that.
Yeah. I think it came from Coldzera, isn't it?
Oh, was it? Could be. It could be. To be fair, I know it was a FaZe player. Though. I believe it was a FaZe player. Right? Okay, fair.
But enough. It was like about this online matches against the players who don't feel like pressure playing from home.
Well, there we go. And that's how good he is as a meme game. He's the meme historian. I got that wrong. I got the right team, but I didn't get Nico. Right. He nailed me. It was Coldzera. There you go. Okay. He goes deep. That's the thing about me. He's got an encyclopedic knowledge of memes in esports.
It was when they lost to Movistar Riders.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
That's good.
5 years ago.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. magixx, just to start out the episode, what do you think of that, though? Are you someone where, has there always been this cheeky side of your personality where you like to make jokes and memes? Have you always been like that? Do you do it for the camera?
I don't. I have never been doing that, like only for the camera. Like back in the years, I was not feeling like just having fun because like I was new to all of that, and with the time going by, I started to not care, just like to have my time being good, being quality time, I think, and if I'm feeling like making jokes, even if they're bad.
Okay.
That's fine because
I relate.
Because it works for me.
Exactly.
And so yeah.
Just one question before we start, even though the show is going to be the topics we decided. You've got to tell me about that final, magixx, because I actually looked this up because I was just spitballing when I was watching it. I was thinking there can't be many players like ever have had a final like that in terms of the numbers you had. And I think someone looked it up, magixx, and something like only like 2 or 3 players ever in a major final have had the stat line that you had. And I think, by the way, they were like, like Snacks and, I don't know, JW or something. Like, one of those like the all-time great players. What did you think of your finals performance? It was kind of amazing. It was like something out of a movie.
Well, I would say, yeah, it was something different. Starting from the second map against Mouse 1 day ago, before the final, where we started playing Ancient, and I was playing insanely good, and the form has been the same, and even better in the next day on the finals. Right. And actually, I've been thinking on it. I've been reflecting on it, and I couldn't find an answer yet how that be real. Because, I mean, if you can say that was a live game, well, that's a great time to have a live game.
Definitely.
Playing in a major final, yeah. But, I mean, sometimes I do have these kind of games, and, it was like playing practice super easy, and I was just more of a confident going into the duels, and I think I was playing more of an aggressive game throughout the final compared to what usually happens, because overall I'm playing like passive.
Yeah. No, Maui, I even love that because he's almost like done the meme there, hasn't it? Like after the final, he's like, right, scrims were great. When's the final start? Well, that was it. It's like Ender's Game or something, bro. It's actually next level if you think about it. Straight fire reference. Right, okay. Let's start the show though. So magixx, we always let the guests go first. What good point are we bringing to the table? What are you enjoying about the scene at the moment?
So I've been writing you one. So I looked at your example. You have gave me an example of Shiro playing great final against Eternal Fire. So I thought, like, what else? I mean, I was thinking about like some stuff which is like overall related to scene. Like the pretty obvious thing is like the growth of the scene and the game actually getting better. If you compare that to what we had 1 year ago. But so the one I would like to talk about is that Chopper had a great tournament here in Copenhagen because we had no coach behind us, and in our team we actually do believe that coach is the like actually like a sixth player is a unit who makes a big difference, and we as a team can completely trust him in what he wants to do and how we want to play the game. Well, we actually had him like to get the preparations for the game, and we have been like calling him by the phone in between maps. So he's telling us the plan.
Okay.
It has also been printed, but you know, anyway, his presence has been easily to feel because if he would stand behind us, Navi wouldn't take that many rounds on that ancient game. It would have
All
ended
right.
much faster, and we wouldn't lost the Anubis against Eternal Fire because without him, without having him, like the most easy thing to notice is that the voice comms, the amount of ideas brought by people on the server. We have 5 players, so there's a chopper to make a calls, and there's few more people to like offer an ideas, and sometimes uh, there's too many ideas, and we cannot really have a decision. What should we do? Or we cannot like reset a game to make it to bring it into the slower pace. And I mean, if he had Kali, he would have called the tactical powers, and
Right.
we would have played slow against EF on Anubis, and that would have been much easier because like round after round we have been just playing fast rounds, and they were like ready for that. Well, they did great job on this comeback, but I do think like that it was more of our fault that we just kept doing fast plays, which they were ready for. But if we play slowly, something would have been different.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
kind of
really
what you
glad
wanted to talk
brought
about
this
anyway,
up.
right, Maui?
Yeah. This is one of the times where we have to give you our notes and we have to tell you what we're going to pick ahead of time, because I was going to pick this exact same thing, because one of the narratives that I was going into this whole tournament with was, okay, you guys don't have Holly. How are things going to go for Chopper and you guys? And I'm glad you brought up those two examples, because to me, the Eternal Fire map one was the clearest one. And I like that you also bring things up about how your team structure works, because we've definitely seen on your guys' vlogs that you take a lot from Holly. Like, he comes up with the entire game plan. He's going to be the one that is just like making sure everybody knows exactly what to do, and coming up with like the overall idea. So it keeps that voice so much more centered. And I think some people might actually take away from what you said, like that Chopper isn't doing a lot, but I don't necessarily think that that's the case, because he obviously has to be the one that continuously brings his Holly's idea into the server and end up making the final plan on it. So I like that. I think that what Chopper showed at this tournament and what you guys showed was maybe not it. Well, it wasn't 100% of how good you guys could be, but it was still very good. It was still very good. Still really great ideas. The mid round, I thought the mid rounding on Ancient actually was really impressive by Chopper too. So, or I'm obviously, obviously never know like exactly who's making what call, but I would assume just kind of like the way you guys switched it up from hitting mostly B site hits and then kind of opening up mid, going into window, trying to get into their spawn, making things really uncomfortable for them. Seeing that happen live made me think, oh, okay, like Holly clearly can't talk to them now, and you guys are enacting a new part of your game plan. So that was really just credit. I mean, I would just say credit overall to the team and Chopper too for just changing what was kind of like a stalemate game plan into one where you guys finally found the edge. So that's against Alexi B and Blade too. So for you guys to make the evolution of how you want to approach the offense, that exact map was when I was like, okay, I have to rate you guys a lot higher. And not that I downplay Holly's contributions, but almost like, okay, you guys can get it done too.
Well, actually, that was a tough game, and like the only issue we had, I think, is that was a lot of ideas in the beginning of the round during the freeze time, but during the round, the mid calls, they were fine, and we just all knew how they are playing. And actually, we had an experience of playing without a coach on a tournament. I think it was Blast, it was Blast Fall Groups in August or somewhere there, and he couldn't be with us again back then in Copenhagen, and it was insanely difficult because besides the preparations, he also doing a lot of stuff going into the game, and back then it was super hard. But after that, when we played one tournament without him, like we have been working on it, and we realized that there is a lot of things that we don't want to happen, and if coach would be there, they would never happen. So just guys, don't tilt and play well.
Actually, to pick up on this point, one thing I'll actually say about Chopper as well is I'm actually someone who can be a critical person of in-game leaders if they're in the best teams in the world, because I often think maybe another in-game leader would have more success. Who knows what the system is, etc. I actually think people will forget because of your performance in the final at that major. Actually, especially on that first map, I think it was, Chopper actually had an amazing performance too. He had a whole bunch of rounds. He was like single-handedly like winning 1vx's and also doing like smart plays and decisive moves on the map. I also thought he played kind of, I know what you mean, like a scrim session, as well. There wasn't like pressure upon him, even though it's not like he's been in a million major finals and won championships. So I actually thought he played very, very well at that himself. So in terms of the calling angle, one of the things on this show we actually have praised many, many times is I always thought when I looked at Spirit, especially because it was a team with two teenage rookies, this really looks like a team where the coach does a lot of work. Like quite clearly his timeouts do have a big effect on the team. It does look like a team that's prepped on the maps that they want to play. In fact, that's one of the things oftentimes we wondered about is some of the times it feels like when the opponent does a crazy veto and so you don't have time to prep, that feels like when Spirit can get caught out. So I've always felt like if the things go the way that it's prepared, that's the best Spirit you can have. And I know what you mean about the idea of what he would have done differently in the game. One of the problems a fan might have is they're just watching the game and they're seeing, you know, like the Go TV perspective and seeing all the different POVs and the commentators are telling them what's happening. But what they will forget is to a player, you exist in that round that you're playing now. So actually what you said as an example of what he could have said in the timeout is a really great example of something coaches do. They will tell you in the timeout, like, we need a pace change. Like, we've done too many rounds at the same pace. Maybe that plays into their style, or maybe we would just be better at more explosive, whatever it is. Maybe we need, as you say, to slow it down sometimes. If you know Eternal Fire, they like to rush, they like to have a lot of duels and brawls, so maybe you slow the game down and suddenly it picks their game apart. I actually think that's where the coach, because he has the overview, he's seeing the bigger game of all the... A player can't always think that way. Sometimes even the in-game leader's sort of caught in his own mind of what he's going to call, but he doesn't necessarily see that aspect. Yeah, I think that's a very good point. Would you agree, by the way? Is it a case that when you have Halley there, like the prep is different?
Actually, going into the preparation to the enemy is going pretty much the same way. Like not diving into the details, we just know how the enemy is playing and how we want to play, and we can actually do that without him on a tournament. But besides the preparations, he is also like a man who can talk with players if players can go like into the pool of negative thoughts.
Right.
There's some of psychological skills in him. We all actually have a psychologist, but you know, it's a different thing if you're talking about that with a guy who have been playing the game, and he can understand like at some days how it feels to be playing bad. And there's actually more of a different things besides the preparation, what he can do or what he can bring into the server while the game is live.
Sure, yeah, the human component. Okay, Maui, what do you want to do for your good point then? What have you gone with?
Yeah, so I mean, there were a couple things. I obviously wanted to talk about Spirit and Holly, but magixx did that, and then we talked about Eternal Fire last time actually on the pod. So I decided to move away from that. So I'm actually doing something that's a little bit more like meta and fun and I also am doing it because I know magixx involves himself with this stuff. But I think this is I was thinking about just the scene as a whole and how we engage with it, and that I don't really love reading Reddit comments or HLTV forum threads all too much. But what I do want to say, I think this is probably going to make a lot of people happy. I think that the Twitter community for CS is hilarious. Like, I actually just think it's really funny. And I think overall, it's kind of a weird thing to use my good point on, but the amount of times that I see something on the sidebar of HLTV, click it, and I'm like, this just sucks. Like, this is just so bad. This is so cruel, so mean. I try to avoid it now. And with Reddit, it's just a lot of people that think they know stuff, but then they just like don't know what the hell they're talking about, and they try to make all these assumptions. And for some reason, if it's the highest upvoted thing on Reddit, then people suddenly think like, yep, this is the truth. But Twitter, I feel like people don't take themselves as seriously, or at least the people that I interact with, like the fans. And I find the funniest memes by far. And another thing that really hurt Reddit is that because they don't allow memes anymore, it's just the same Elige smiling picture at the top of every comment thread. But on Twitter, people make some hilarious memes, like legitimately some really funny stuff. And also people share really good analytical content on there too.
Yeah, true.
So I think it's actually kind of become one of the best hubs for good Counter-Strike discussion. Obviously, there's a lot of fan bases that say crazy things on Twitter, and you can't really avoid them. So you have to just eventually, like, my block list is quite big, and it's usually people speaking in other languages at me. But for people that are just engaging with most of my content in a fun way, on there, it's easily the funniest stuff. And I think it's because they tie themselves a bit more to their personal brand. So they don't just espouse random takes as much. They just like make funny images. Like, I'll just say for people, like, I'll just name a couple people, and I think like these are all good people that are really good in different ways. I think Polo Ulup is really, really, really funny. I think Pieter Sus is really, really funny. I think Statsmeister, at least just like for grabbing graphics of stats and making it a discussion point for people, he's very helpful to the scene too, even if he's not really making a take. Then I also have people in my own Twitter community, this B-Trams guy that makes these like he parses demos and then just posts like spreadsheets and charts of his findings. I think he's really good also. There's a lot more, and there's a lot of people that have made me laugh out loud on Twitter versus all these other platforms to engage with. And I don't know the Telegram scene, so maybe it's good over there, but I have no clue. But in terms of what I, as an English speaking person, know, I just think the Twitter community for CS is really, really funny and good.
What do you think, magixx? How do you find Twitter?
Well, I would say that I've never been using Reddit.
All right.
Because why would I? And going into the Twitter, yes, there is a lot of accounts that related to CS, but currently I'm using Twitter to reply to only one person. An ex-Thorin and Mauisnake knows him, and he also mentioned him, the Polo Loop, and that's me, as far as you know. And besides him, I'm not like using it like at all, because not that interested in doing that, because I really don't care about the social media, but I am more of a user of HLTV forums. I never had an account, but like every day I'm reading something there, and that's just hilarious that there's a lot of like topics which were written like by GPT. I have no idea because of I can't believe that the actual people can have their brain working that way, and that's like there is like a nonsense every 10 minutes you can get.
Yes.
And that's crazy. And actually, I'm having fun from reading all that. I'm also reading like the topics which are related to hate me, but you know, there's lots of players who are getting affected by that in some way, and like getting tilted, I think, because there's an opinions that you are playing bad or whatever else, but why would you fucking care about that? So I'm just reading all that, reading that from like the minds of NPCs out there on these forums, because this forum is actually bringing only that to the humanity. There's like one of 10,000 threads, which is actually useful
course, yeah.
because sometimes there are some dudes who are making some statistics.
Right.
So there was some guy besides Nero doing like some charts with
Oh, sure, yeah.
some details of like maybe percentage of hidden shots of 100 shots with op of the top teams
Right.
offers and
okay.
riflers, and that is something you haven't received from Nero from his job, but a random user from HLTV made that up, and it's actually a great thing to have because you can see like how many shots out of 10 the sniper is hitting, and if he is hitting a lots of shots, like 7 out of 10 or maybe more, maybe 7.5 out of 10, it means that he is decent with opping. But if he lacks in statistics, in rating, that means he is probably bad with positioning or something else, or maybe team around him.
Yes. By the way, I like the Chat GPT shout out too. You could just make a program called Chat HLTV, and it's like you ask it any CS question. I agree. It's like instead of a neural net, because that would imply a brain, it's like actually a network of people without brains, and it's just what they collectively would like put forward. It's like, here you go, sir. And it's like, what? That's nothing. Like, throw it away. But I agree with you. One in every 10,000, like a needle in a haystack. Every now and then, there will just be a banger. Like someone will actually do a real thread that has real, like you say, some data or some angle we haven't seen before. And also, to be fair, you do get the odd person who does the title, fans of this person come here, and you go, all right, you click it, and then it's actually a bit like they were just joking, like actually they're going to put a real comment, or they're not just an idiot, So every now and then you get someone who is an idiot. I agree with you on that. Also, on the actual angle, I'm glad you mentioned it, Maui, because general Twitter, I think, is a cesspool, personally. Like if you just open your replies after you post something, it could just be it could literally be anything. Could be like, we'll kill you, you hate dogs, I don't know, they just make up any opinion. Sometimes it doesn't even feel like they're replying to your tweet, But one thing that is actually underrated, when they created those Twitter group communities, I remember thinking, like, isn't that just a Discord though? Why is this going to do anything? Bro, yours and Launder's actually are pretty good. Like, they actually have, like, people sort of get as in English, like, they got the assignment, like, they understand the premise of sort of what, like yours, for example, they get that it's like your style of humor, it's things like referencing like Hooksy or Snacks or something, and so you get actually the best like little mini comments during the tournament usually are in there. Like the joke will be, Maui has to apologise to Snacks after he has a good game one or something. That's it. Those actually have sort of somewhat filtered out a lot of the idiots. I feel like they're not too bad, those. Yeah, not bad.
Yeah, Twitter communities, actually, I kind of had the same opinion where I was like, I also was thinking for a long time, should I make a Discord? But I'm just so glad that I made a Twitter community and I'm active there instead, because one, I'm already on Twitter.
Sure.
And two, I think getting people to change platforms for a Discord sometimes is like, you might just get different types of people. And also, I don't want to moderate a Discord really, but Twitter is very easy to moderate, and I assigned a few people. And my last take on this is that I think my favorite Twitter user ever is Craftmeister, but he doesn't make as much stuff anymore, so this is an appeal to him to make more memes again.
Pretty sure I will say I can even remember he has done some outrageous ones back in the day. We won't reference some really out there ones.
He has the one where you're walking at the esports awards accepting your trophy, and it's like anytime anything good happens, and he would just post that video under things. He's like, my face win, and then it's just you.
Listen, I won't lie. That is one where I was sort of conscious of what I was doing, so I did sort of swag it out. I even did that thing like a politician, like I'd say like, Did like one of those, even though I've never do that normally. Because I just thought, listen, I get where cameras are, Maui. I just thought, fucking just swag it out. You're only going to win this fucking thing once anyway. Right, my good point is actually going to be back related to the game. And if anyone knows, not only who I always predict to win, but especially who I bet for and against, this might actually blow your mind. Because I might have lost 1 billion bets, Maui, betting against Pain Gaming. Because every time I just think to myself, well, they never go deep in tournaments. Like, they're not actually a top team. Also, by the way, people know I'm a fan of Big Azera. I think he's quite a skilled player, seems like a good in-game leader. But I look at their team over the years, they don't have big names. They don't have the traditional Brazilian names you think of as the next stars or the current stars. And in fact, they even lost Lakowski recently, who I thought's a pretty good player, to MIBR. So the whole time I've sort of looked at Pain a bit cynically, like, oh, it's just a prison for Big Azera. Like, he probably should leave and go to Furia, or maybe he should be in MIBR and maybe they should make a super team. But I have to say, this is why I'm in now. Because I always did think he, even with the lesser rosters, could always get games close and steal a map from teams. And here's why I'm excited. Bro, they actually finally have firepower. They actually finally have some boys. Like, not only is Big Azera himself doing it, the, what's his name guy, NQZ, the AWPer, he has a little bit of talent too. I know it's, the problem with that name is, like, as he doesn't have a vowel in, you're not going to remember that naturally. You're going to have to see him kill a lot of people before your brain registers and remembers it all. He's pretty good.
At least it's 3 letters and not 2 letters.
That's true. Okay. And then the guy they've just signed, the one who's from like Chile or whatever it is, David Diaz, the one from Red Canids. First of all, he was the banger in Red Canids if you ever saw, like, at the majors and stuff. And this guy can actually frag. So all of a sudden, anytime someone who seems like they have a tactical game and a team that's got tight team play gets enough firepower, now I'm interested. Because I tell you what, this team actually, I do think is a team. Spoiler, I will actually be doing the underdog bets now, Maui, because I think this team actually, if you look at the map pool and they have the right opponent, this team's like a bit like an MIBR. They can get an upset off a bunch of top teams, mate. And as you saw at this tournament, bro, they almost did take Na'Vi to the limit. Like, they had Na'Vi sweating there. They were Pepper sweating, you know, like, I could tell they were getting nervous on that. I was getting pretty tough. So I'm actually sort of in on this team now. So it's my good point. I'm going to say Pain Gaming and the new Pain Gaming lineup. What do you think, magixx? What do you think of Pain?
Well, there's actually a lot of stuff to say about the Pain Gaming. I think that talking about the Big Azera, he's definitely a great player because we have seen him performing great during the last couple of years. Yeah. And as you said, he also has never had a roster of star players like Furia or Meeb or someone's. And, you know, I think that their results, they're actually good, and they're always like a scary opponent to face, especially when the Vertigo was in the pool, because that map sucks. And so, actually, I think he's a great guy to build a team. And actually, I have a point that if he would have played with star players like Kesserati, Yuri, etc., he probably wouldn't find that success with them.
Oh, okay.
Because if you're an agile and you're building team around you, and he's getting like the skilled young guys who are pretty much new players to this team, they are willing to listen to you. And they're willing to play your ideas, how you see the game and how you approach it. But if he would have star players in his team, they would be like adding their vision, how they want to play the game, and it would have been a mess if that would have been that way. I think there's always this chance of some star player really wanting to play how he wants, but not how the team wants.
Yes.
I think it's pretty rare, but it can happen. But
yeah, of course.
Him having like the young guys who are listening to him and playing great, he's bringing the ideas, and he has these individuals. It's a great thing to have, because like last year, I think, actually in Copenhagen, they were eliminated 2-3 before the playoffs, and they faced the Na'Vi back then.
Sure.
Actually, like, not the best team you can play on 2-2 match, and actually not the worst team you can play on the 2-2 match, especially in Copenhagen, as we all know. So yeah, I think if they keep up the good work and if they put the trust into him as a leader, I have no actual idea of how like important the coach role in
Sure.
their team, but definitely Bigzera seems like a guy who can build a team and build a structure from the scratch, and it can work. He definitely can be he can bring his team to the paying best in his region, because we have Amoeba, who had like a couple of good runs, but never like great results in last
Yes.
year, and we have Furia, who are like, I mean, they are not being like counted by the best team in Brazil, I think, for last couple of years.
Sure.
Like we have Miber, who are actually seems like to be a better team
Yeah.
in the region, while the Fury have these all-time superstars like Caserato, Yuri, Fallen, but it just like doesn't seem working out
Yes.
unless like they make some more big changes, because actually, I mean, actually that's crazy that we didn't get to see Caserato playing in an international team, because he's an insanely great rifler
For
to have in the
sure.
game. But I think it actually looks like, when you're looking at it from the other side, it seems like the guy has chosen his own comfort over the
Yes.
trophies, because he had a chance, I think, because
I think he could have gone
he's
to Team Liquid in a few different teams. Yeah.
He could have played in an international roster and get the trophies, but instead of that, he's like playing already maybe 6-7 years in Furia, and the time is going on, and he's getting older, and he will not get that. And I think it was
Yeah.
2019 when they signed, all of them signed the 5 years contract, and Abel J like was benched, and like it was end of his career back then, and so he renewed that 1 year ago probably, and it pretty much says that we will never see Caserato playing an international
Yes.
team, only for Furia. And how can be sure that he will get trophies unless Furia brings a great money to get a star players from other teams like maybe Payne, or who else do you have there? Nanzi maybe. And anyway, it's a gamble. It's a
Yes.
gamble because you will never know how is that gonna work out, because there was a lot of examples of superstar rosters
Yeah.
shitting their pants.
No, by the way, I do think you make a very nuanced point. Like, it's true. That is also the beauty. If you're like a big brain IGL, if you have a lot of younger players who haven't got the experience, they're going to listen to you. You can sort of shape them and make the team. And obviously, you do make a very good point. Superstar players sometimes demand the game be played their way, even if it's not as good for the team. But anyway, I don't know why we're talking about Dexter. That has nothing to do with this. That's just a joke, magixx. That's not serious. That's just a joke. Dexter, you know, I love you, baby. That's just what the community says. Not me. I didn't say that. That's just something people on HLTV. You know what? Blame chat HLTV. I put in a chat HLTV. They told me it was Dexter that was toxic. It's not. He's just a guy who really likes to slap hands and shoot AWP shots. So God bless him. See you in Falcons. So right, let's go now.
Okay, well,
go on. Do you want to follow up?
Yeah. I mean, I've been just riding the Pain hype train. As soon as they signed Davideus, I was really excited about this team because Lux was good for them. Like, I wouldn't say that he was. Yeah, he definitely was good, but I never really. I don't know, something about Davideus for him. I've seen way more impactful games, I would say, from Davideus, whereas Lux is like would usually end up pretty good on the stat sheet. I would just say that Davideus was practically carrying Red Canids in some of the games that I had seen before the RMR and everything like that. So for him to also Biguzera change to now play some kind of bad anchor spots for him, and for them to actually still be this reasonably good is a really exciting prospect. And I don't think it's going to take very long. It could literally be by the end of Katowice before we're starting to say Pain is better than them. I would say for the two guys that are, I mean, I'd say like NQZ can be good sometimes, but like I'm kind of hit or miss with him. I'm kind of like I've seen him look like he was going to take the crown for best opper in Brazil, but I still wouldn't really bestow that on him. And Yeah, I'd say like the trio though of Biguzera, Davides, and Snow is really, really good. I think that could easily be if NQZ and Kawez find a little bit more consistency, they can be like legitimately super sick. So, yeah, I kind of agree. I think the map pool thing maybe it's gonna hurt them because I know they were pretty solid at Vertigo too, but I no, I think they're still really good though. I mean, watching them play Navi was one of those, yeah, they lost, but eye test wise, their tactics are really methodical,
Yes.
slow. They take map control really well. They take the right amount of risks for me also, where sometimes they won't molly something, they'll just swing it. And they still have nades, but I like that they're not like always flashing molly every angle. It's like they'll usually take one angle and they're like, we're gonna skip it this round. We're just gonna double peek it. And I think that's always a really good mix up instead of just out. You're like when you use too much utility, then the other team just knows exactly what you're doing in every stage of it. But they actually have tricked a couple teams when I've watched them because they got into a place silently that the other team wasn't aware of. And I mean, I just love it. I love that they change things up. I think they have good tactics, and I think they have a really strong core.
Yes. Now we have a sponsor. It's the classic one, Into the M. I'm obviously wearing one right now. It's the same one I've worn a million times. I've got a couple of different ones. I have also like one with like a Japanese tree, but this one with sort of like a hyper Tokyo, Neo Tokyo type sci-fi futuristic design. I think it's just really cool. I also, by the way, I've mentioned this in the past, but I can actually tell you the more I've used it, the more true it is. I always tell you the worst thing about buying print t-shirts, if they're cheap ones or just knockoff ones or some brand, just a generic one in the street, is once you wash them like 3 times, it's horrible. You just want a brand new t-shirt at that point in time. You don't get that softness when it's fit. This one has been washed about 10 times. And first of all, look how stretchy it still is. Like it's not like it hasn't got that thing where it feels like cardboard now and it's all stiff. And also you look, this is obviously a black t-shirt. Look how black it still is. It's not grey as they become at that point in time. They get like a dog. It's like the age in like 15 years and like 2 washes, suddenly it's all grey and you're like, like essentially, unless you're trying to buy that old band t-shirt look, that's not what you want. So this is still lovely, feels really nice to wear. The designs are great. Obviously, they have loads of different selections of stuff, not just t-shirts, but especially t-shirts on their website. They've got a bazillion different ones. They've got the plain ones. They've got graphics ones. They've got all sorts of different things. And they do bundle deals, so you can hit a specific price point to get savings. You can get 3 graphic tees for $61.95, 3 basic tees like the Type Monty, like just a high quality single collar, 3 of them for $52.95. And obviously, always, if you use our code, it's on the screen there, which is intotheam.com/LFN with the code LFN. That always gets you 10% off anytime that we do these things. But interestingly, they also got a sale coming up, and Into the AM anniversary sale began on the 22nd of January, it'll run all the way till the 9th of February. That actually just gets you 50% off everything on the store. And the crucial thing we always point out is for both the graphics for both the bundles and this discount of 50%, our code always stacks on top, which is the coolest thing. So if you would get 50% off if you didn't use our code, if you use our code as well, you get 60% off basically off the things that are 50% off. So I would say check it out. It's an excellent site, actually. I've had loads of their gear at this point in time. It's all been very, very nice. As you might have seen last year, we even did like a collab t-shirt with them. We're going to be doing a whole bunch more of that. They're going to help us with some merch stuff. So one of our best partners, I would say it's a very high quality partner, actually. And yeah, we've had great response from all you guys. You've supported us and you used the code and got a great savings. So this time you can get 50 or 60% off stuff and you can get those bundles as well. I think that's also cool, by the way, because I do get a bit annoyed where there's like a discount code, but then you're like, oh, well, which is it? Do I get the sale or does it supply or what? And you're like, you don't know where it's at. It all just stacks. It's actually very, very simple to understand as a result. So thank you to the NTM and everyone who purchased it. Right, back to the show. Obviously, now we're going to the dark side. We're going to the bad things. Now, magixx, I know as a CS pro, it must be easy to come up with something bad in CS. We all love to complain. That's the thing I notice a lot of pros like. Twitter's normally where people go to complain. What's bad at the moment? What's annoying you? What don't you like in the scene at the moment?
Well, actually, that was a hard time to decide what is like the bad and ugly topics for today,
okay.
because like there's definitely an issues like on the scene, but I'm not like I don't care about some of them actually.
Fair enough.
I mean,
He's just winning too much.
I know.
I mean, so the issue that I brought is the tournament schedule of this year, and I would start with I don't know how it is actually working from the very beginning of how the tournament operator is setting their dates for the tournament, but there is a couple of conflicts in the schedule of an entire year where it's where the tournaments by ESL and Blast, both these tournament organizers, are placed that way that you cannot attend a PGL tournament.
Right.
And I think it is actually not that big fault of PGL as tournament operator, as the thing that ESL and Blast don't want the teams playing
Oh,
not
you
their
think they did it
tournaments.
to fuck with PGL, basically?
I mean, yeah, I think it
Right.
worked. I think it works
Right.
that way because there's actually one conflict that I can find very easily. It's PGL Astana in May from 10th to 18th, and the very next day you have IM Dallas, and
Well, you have to go all the way from Kazakhstan to Dallas. Yeah, exactly.
and it's one day, and you
Yeah.
cannot do that because
Yes.
even if you're like going into the plane right after the final, you will not make it in time.
Yes.
And I think that's actually being brought by ESL
It was
as
intentional.
an operator. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
right.
And there is also some. Wait, let me check. Let me check. I've
I
seen
know there's a
that
couple more.
before.
There's a lot that are like that. Like you said, they just put it the next day, right?
Yes, where the event starts the next day, right after the final, and it's physically impossible to
Yeah.
move from one part of the world to
It's
fucking
I
nowhere.
well, IEM Melbourne and Blast Rivals are also 1 day apart. So if you
Fucking
aren't in the
Australia
grand
as well.
finals-
That takes
Yeah,
all day to
exactly.
travel from.
I don't think you can get to. I know it's a day ahead, which is like the one thing, but
Oh,
I
right.
don't think you
Right, I
can
hadn't
really
thought of
get
that.
to Melbourne to
Okay.
Monterey, Mexico in time to play your first match if you're in the grand.
Right.
Finals.
Yeah,
That's not
it's not possible, and I think uh, it actually comes from the idea of TO wanting the best team to play in their tournaments, and of course, I truly believe that if they wanted to, they would make a little bit different schedule, but with this exact scenario that we have, there is teams who are forced to play the tournaments, even though if you're as a team who are planning their schedule for a year, there's definitely some locations you really want to visit. An example, we as a team really wanted to play in Kazakhstan since the announcement because you're playing in front of audience which is supporting you, and it's a pretty rare
sure.
thing for
Yeah.
us as a team because everywhere we have been playing, we have been booed on.
Sure.
And I think the only place maybe where we have been cheered for maybe was China. And anyways, in the final, everyone was cheering for FaZe. So
True. True.
we really wanted to play again with the audience there, and I'm still not sure what's the plan for this month because if we're going to Dallas, we're skipping PGL. If we're going to PGL, we cannot make it to the ESL event, and that's actually an issue.
I mean, I feel like when this calendar was made, it was just that the TOs looked at it, saw what they were doing, and just said, we're going to try to make it such that our tournament is hard to refuse. And we're kind of already seeing the beginnings of that, actually. But I'm kind of, I guess I don't know. I don't know. You probably don't want to publicly say like which tournament you're going to choose right now or anything like that. But like, I get your reasoning for it. Yeah, I mean, it's just I think it's good that teams skip tournaments, but I also think that if a team really wanted to and was desperate, they shouldn't actually have to choose. Actually, that's kind of my take on it all. Like that, I would if you're like say Eternal Fire and you're in a position where you're kind of on the edge, like you're not going to qualify. Maybe you are going to qualify for the major now because of the bounty, but if you were, I don't know, maybe there's like another team, like a ranked 12th team, let me just say. Like I kind of want the ranked 12th team to be able to say yes to everything, but I would say that the tier 1 the teams that are in the top 5 or top 4 maybe can skip 1 or 2 here or there, but they also shouldn't be forced to by how the schedule is made. So I think it's a good point overall, and I hope that I don't even know if anything can change actually, because I think
Probably
people
needs
already
Valve as
announced
usual. Right, I will say there's a few reasons why I think this is bad. First of all, I agree with you. It's totally fine, the idea there are overlaps or events people can't attend, but this is really cynically done. I agree with magixx on this one. This wasn't like, oh, ours starts 2 days later, so you'll have to really have a really good flight and then get there and hope you don't play the first game. Some of them quite literally are. It's the very next day. And so if you play the game at 1 p.m. and the final ends at 10 p.m. the night before, I don't even know sometimes if it would physically, even if you tried to rush to get there, I don't even know if you could. And even though to a fan, you might think to yourself, yeah, but that only affects the teams in the final. First of all, they're probably the teams we want to see at the next tournament because logically they're good because they're in the final. And then secondly, there's also the factor that if you're a big team like Spirit or FaZe or someone, you can't cynically think about an event and go, we'll probably go out in the group stage there. So after the first couple of days, we'll get our flights then and then we'll hop over the next event. You can't plan that way. You have to plan we're going to try and win the event. We're going to do our absolute best. We're going to go peak. We're going to prepare for this. We're going to prep. And I'll also put this out there, which is similar to what I just said. It's why some of the teams who have declined some events have actually taken a big gamble. I mean, people probably saw from that one with the PGL one. Team Liquid is taking a huge gamble. Team Liquid hasn't done anything yet with this roster. So they're not like a super elite team that know they'll win an event. For all they know, the event they do go to, they just go out in the group stage. And suddenly they've given up another event for millions and millions that maybe they could have wanted to attend back to back. By the way, sometimes you do badly at one tournament and having a back-to-back tournament lets you pick things up and examine what happened in the meantime, or it gives you the kick up the bomb that you weren't doing well enough and you need to change something, change the map or whatever, a spot or something. And then lastly, if you just think of last year, it won't be possible to have as cool a thing as when Na'Vi was in those 6 straight finals in a row, where even if they didn't win the event, they were just always in the finals. And it meant that they had this really cool narrative that they're the final boss. To win an event, you've got to beat Na'Vi in the final. That was what CS was about. Well, in this scenario, if Na'Vi's in one of the finals and the next event's in Australia, they're not going to be at that final, are they? So then if that team, if they say they won the first final really dominant, then the team that goes to Australia in this hypothetical example, if they win, you're always going to think, wonder what would happen if Na'Vi was there. So it'll actually also kind of spoil some of the narratives for me. Even though I don't want people at every event, it's up to you. If you wanted to attend loads of the events, you want to grind, which I think Na'Vi did do, by the way. I could even argue maybe all those tournaments did burn them out a little bit. Could be. But I think it was kind of cool. It was kind of a cool narrative. Every tournament was kind of in some way, win or lose, about Na'Vi on some level. That was a dominant theme that kept going event to event to event. So yeah, I'm with you. I think these are pretty good points. Anything else to say, magixx? Did you get a point?
Okay, yeah,
Yes.
no, I'm back. So there's actually 2 ways why you're skipping an event that you maybe want to or you don't want to play. So the first one is the conflicts of schedule, because you can really be wanting to play the event, but you cannot because you're forced to play ESL tournament, which is closed to dates, but you cannot go there. And the second reason is I think you have to be skipping some of events because of the burnout is an actual thing. I remember last year, during the Rio invites, we have been receiving a lot of criticism towards us that we skipped the tournament. And there was a lot of analysts.
ESL Pro League,
Twitter. Yeah? No, not the Pro League. The EM Rio.
Oh, Rio, right? Okay, yes.
Yeah. So after the summer break, we had maybe 6 events in a row.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how we performed there because we sucked there. It was Cologne.
Okay.
World Cup, something else, and it was really a lot. So there was a decision made to skip the Rio, and we received the hate, but with the time going, we can clearly say that it was the right decision to skip the Rio because we had more of a time to chill after this streak of events that we had, to get rid of bad emotions because we sucked in them and grinded the last places there. So, and we see Na'Vi, who have been playing a lot of tournaments one by one, and they were making the finals there, and it's even more time with each other. And with the last 2 big events of the year, probably pretty much the biggest, only comparable with the first major, Kato in Cologne, is the World Finals and the major. We had no Na'Vi in their form, and we have also seen that multiple players from the team saying in interviews that they're getting tired of each other, and it has been seen from the way how they played. Like last two
Yeah.
events, they bombed out in the Singapore, they lost to New Australis like super easily, and in the major, it was also a different team because there was a lot of events and they
Yes.
just burned out.
You were actually too polite there, magixx, because you're right. I do remember certain people. Might even have been Maui, I don't know. I'm not saying it wasn't. I'm not saying it was. But I know there were some analysts that were like, when they saw that you weren't going to Rio, they were like, because at the time Spirit wasn't considered the top team, they were like, oh, this is going to hurt them. They won't have like warm-up before they go to the major. Well, obviously, that has aged quite poorly. You did win the major and looked fucking amazing. Like, I don't think your team's actually looked... I think the last time your team looked that good was when you won Katowice. Like, you actually came in like primed at the major, yeah. It's true. Was it you, Maui?
Yeah.
Did you say it on Twitter?
I
Was
would
it you?
I would have just assumed it was Yanko. Honestly,
I think Yanko sounds like the one it would be. You're right. He's the sort of person who knew that angle, wouldn't he?
Yeah,
True.
I don't know if I really got down on people for skipping
fair
Rio.
enough. Fair enough.
If I'm not working the event, I don't have to say anything about it.
Okay. Okay. Cynical. All right. We like that. Right. Okay then, Maui. What is your bad point?
I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Yeah. Bad point.
This is where they find out you did tweet
yeah.
and then you get like exposed in a video, like, and then Maui lied and he was the one who
No,
said it.
I'm not sure if I.
No,
I'm not sure what I
whatever,
said about
sure.
them. I've said on my stream. I've probably said absolutely everything.
Yeah, exactly. True.
So I think okay, my bad point is just the situation with Heroic. I'm really kind of confused by their
Yes.
statement with
I know what you
Nilo,
mean.
where they said that he's not in the roster, but he can play himself into the roster. And I just simply don't quite get how that functions.
I know.
So I mean the wording is exactly this. Our starting five is locked in and will have the chance to prove themselves. Therefore, Nilo will not have a guaranteed spot. He will have to fight his way back onto the team. So I'm just really unsure. It's just how vague this is.
I don't know, what does that mean?
And also, yeah, I don't really know exactly what it means, and I also don't know if I don't know if this is like a fair opportunity. Okay, I'm just scratching my head so much that I have like no strong take on this other than I don't know how you make a roster function when Modern technically stood in, then they had Nilo didn't even come to Blast. It was like their core people. Like the team that magixx you faced was with Modern, and it was not even for Nilo, it was for Tanir, that guy that was from Gun 5.
Right.
So they didn't even play with the backup guy who was supposed to be Nilo, who is, by the way, I like that they tell me that it's a 3-year deal. So I like when people express the duration of someone's contract, but I also see that Nilo is not playing in the opening match versus Liquid. It's Tanir for Heroic. And so the bad point is just I don't really understand what's happening with Nilo. And the whole thing was that we thought this roster was going to be formed with him. And it seemed in the last moments it was Tanir instead of Nilo. But the thing is that I think Tanir is better than a couple of the other guys that might be on Heroic right now. And so I guess they have to maybe cut somebody like xFloud or Youngster. And overall, that's what I'm just saying is bad here. I'm just not really sure what they're gonna do moving forward, and I don't really know how Nilo gets integrated with the roster. Whether it's if someone performs badly, because I'd say the main reason that I think this is extra weird is that it's, to me, I'm not sure who the 1-for-1 positional replacement is for Nilo, and so you would think that it's kind of like a 6-man deal where he would be slotting in. Like, let's say he played all of xFloud's positions. Well, if xFloud has 2 bad tournaments in a row, I could understand why they would bring Nilo in. But it almost seems like they're going to just bring him in for any of the 3 riflers and try to make it work. And and overall, I just don't think that this has a great vision to it, or at least what they're telling us. Maybe behind the scenes they do, but as far as I can tell, he's just, if someone's bad for 2 tournaments in a row, he's just going to take their spot.
Okay. Do you have any thoughts on this, magixx?
Actually, do you know who is the agile for this team?
Lina, LNZ.
LNZ, the old nip guy.
Okay. Well, if I remember the statement correctly, it has been saying that he has to fight his way back into the team, and it's actually not possible because I mean I don't know how it works inside of Heroic, but actually you cannot fight back into the team if you can't do anything,
If you
and
can't play.
like yeah, exactly, and like it seems like they just bought a guy, like a talented rifler from Sweden who has been posting great numbers, playing metasports, and just benched him for 3 years.
No, it does feel like that. Yeah.
Just imagine that.
exactly.
I mean, well, I think he will be replacing one of like 3 Sangal players because they're not using him at the moment because they have the Sangal core of Xcloud, LNZ, and Youngster, and they have
Right.
to keep the points. They have to play some tournaments
Right.
and some days, so they would be ready for the replacement pretty soon. And actually, I think that it will not be decided by someone playing bad, like couple of tournaments in a row. I think it's probably like a made a decision already. So they're still playing with some of them, maybe just to update the ranking. And when it's made, like the next tournament, they can bring up Nilo if they want to, because like they paid for him. So like it seems like they paid money for a single core to get invited to the tournaments, and they paid the money for a player who is actually a young, promising like player, and it's weird, and he can't be on the outside of heroic plans for this year. It's not possible that you have a talented player just warming up the bench. So once the rankings are updated, I think they will be bringing him against instead of someone from the trio. It's probably could be also the LNZ maybe, or Xcloud or Youngster, whatever. And I think the positions, the roles are not that important at this point because they're pretty young players, all of them, and they can get used to any position. And they also have a great coach of So, which we have seen doing a brilliant job. He is actually, I would say, one of the best coaches probably in the scene, because from what we have seen, he's been able to bring like different rosters, different groups of people to a great results, maybe to some wins on the tournaments or something else, and it was like a completely different course of players that he had. So there's like only Blade comparable to him in that direction, being a coach who achieved something or some rankings, high rankings with absolutely different course. Like that's great job for him.
By the way, I actually know what you mean on this one. And I think actually it's a really good job I went last, because I think you both did a really good job showing all the different possible reactions someone could have to that press statement. And I think the core thing I would say is, even though they write a lot of different things and try to give, in theory, a lot of different angles, it's actually incredibly unclear and it's really vague. Like, start with the locked thing. I'm almost certain, just from being someone who's read a lot of PR statements, they just picked the wrong word, Maui. I think what they mean is, we've decided our 5-man lineup. It's this 5 players, right? But because they put, we've locked our lineup, right? The metaphor of a lock is, it's locked in it. You can't get in. You have to use a key to open it. So once it's locked, it makes it sound like, congratulations, we've just signed Nilo. You can't be in the team though, but you got a 3-year deal. It's like, what the fuck? See, what you're saying is, I agree with you, Magic. Quite a promising player for Metasport. One that online was looking really spicy. It's like, good news, guys. We've got him, and we just locked him in a fucking closet for 3 years. And let's see if at some point he gets out. It's like, what are you talking about? If he's good, why isn't he in the team? But that's why I actually agree that I think it's the other way around, Maui. It's even more cynical than that. It's actually the opposite. What they're trying to do is make it not too controversial when they cut one of the 3 Sangal players. I think Magic's Magixx has nailed it. I think what they've done is they really, if they could, based on this press release, they really, if they could, would have just signed 2 of the players and Nilo. That's what it looks like to me. But because he had to sign all 3, especially because their core got taken by Falcons, they want to be in the tournaments. So you sign the guys from Sangal, but you don't want to actually tell the public, we only signed like one of these guys because we have to, but he's shit, we're not going to play him. You want it to be like, no, he's going to have a chance to prove himself. He's locked into the roster and everything. But we're also just going to sign this like shit hot, really good player. He's just going to sit on the bench waiting, even though, as you say, magixx, doing what? Like, it's not like if you're not playing him in the tournament, you're not going to bring him into scrims. It'd be a waste of scrims. And also, what position would he play? He's not in all the other scrims. It's just so ludicrous. There isn't another team he can play. He's on your team, and all he can do is play, I don't know, FPL at that point in time. He can already do that. So this implies to me it's the other way around. I actually think what it's basically saying is, it's almost a message to fans, but even maybe to the 3 players. It's like, welcome to Heroic. We're glad to have you here. We're certainly glad to have your points and have your spots in the tournament. But it's like that scene, and do you remember the film, magixx, The Dark Knight, that Batman film that Christopher Nolan made with the Joker in? And there's a scene in it where the Joker does that thing where like snaps like a pool cue over his knee, and he goes, we're holding tryouts, because the implication is the 2 men have to like fight each other to death to see who gets the spot. That's like what this sounds like. It sounds like you're saying, listen, one of you is not going to be here in 6 months, because see that Nilo guy, he's waiting, and he's gonna like, fight his way into the light. Yeah, I bet he is. Sounds like, so I'm waiting to see what happens, because I feel like, it sounds to me like the timer, if you're those 3 players from Sangal, you're not the IGL. Again, we don't know what the idea of this team is. I'd go and look on that GitHub, and I would get really scientific on how the points work, because the second those points aren't needed, mate, you better be better than Nilo. That's all I'm saying. Because I actually agree. Luckily, I do think this means Nilo is going to be brought into the team when they can. And by the way, I think he'll be a good player. I think it's actually quite a good pickup. I could even see a world where maybe like an LNZ or someone asks for this guy and said he's the next, top up and coming player. But it better not be what it initially looked like. Because I agree, if it really was just like, good news, Nilo, welcome to the team, you don't get a player, get the fuck out. Like, that is ridiculous. A 3-year contract. We just said about Fury, and this is like the worst version of Fury. It's like, imagine 5 years, just never play CS again. I'll retire as a heroic player. Goodbye. Like, it's ridiculous. I love it. I love PR. I love how people just get caught up in their own bullshit. Right. For my bad point, this is actually, it's a very brief one, but I actually wonder what people will think about this, actually, because the 2 people in the call, I don't know how much magixx does this, but I know people like Maui on his stream, of course he's showing demos, and people like Austin who've come on the show before, do whole videos based around it. Maui, I obviously am not a person, I don't do it on my stream at the moment, my PC for CS2 is not good enough, I don't watch demos at this point in time, I just go through POVs that people upload to YouTube, and I'm a boomer in that sense, by the way. So one of the problems is, I know that towards the latter end of CSGO, I mean, we had 1 million frag movies. It was like, you could get really high quality POV footage of all the big games and all the I heard, because I made a tweet, I said on Twitter, right, I guess the frag movie culture in Counter-Strike is just dead, because think about what an insane 2024 Donk just had, and where's all the frag movies? You would think someone would have made like a 20-minute, like amazing frag movie with like, Matrix music and like all the sick After Effects and stuff. And what happened was one of the famous movie makers in the scene, that guy called Sicko, who I think works maybe with Cloud9 or something off the top of my head, he basically said, it's not that. It's that basically last year in CS2, there's loads of bugs in the demos and problems, and that he said something like loads of even like the tournament demos were like corrupted or didn't work, and you just couldn't like extract the demo. So what he's basically saying now is you can't have like a dope frag movie like CSGO for some of these players, and especially for Donk, like it's not like he's playing like CCT, he's playing the biggest lands in the world. Like that's actually a bit disturbing, because that's like an area where apparently we've just taken like a downgrade in CSGO, and I always worry about that, because I can tell you that's not the sort of thing that's usually like the developers' priority is like fix a demo or something. They don't really get that part of the game. I mean, if you told them like, yeah, but you can still host the tournament, right? Yeah, of course. You still got the stream view, right? Yeah, of course. You still got like the Go TV demo. Yeah, of course. Like, they don't really get why us nerds want like a frag movie guy to have like the super POV. That almost seems like, a bonus to them. But I have to say this, and the reason why I put it as my bad point is everyone who watched 1.6 will know HLTV was really bad in 1.6, especially in those eras where like it was all laggy and you couldn't see it. It didn't look like a POV demo. And so in the early days of CS 1.6, POV demos were everything. game. That was how you got the really good footage of the best kills and the best rounds of all time. And so many frag movies, that's what made the frag movie awesome, is that you got the POVs from the player himself. Well, in the modern day, you don't need them from the player. They're supposed to be provided by the tournament. So I just find it kind of sad. Like, I love frag movies. I'm a nerd like that. I love when people put together all the best highlights, but I don't want it to just be like one of those cynical stream highlights back to back to back. I want someone to use their artistry and how technically great they are in the video editing and make something dope. So I think it's just sad if we don't have demos. I hope this gets fixed. I think it's important. What do you think, magixx? Are you a demo watcher?
Well, yeah. I'm usually watching a lot of demos, and actually the demo viewer in CS2 is actually bad.
Oh, right.
I mean, the first time when I tried to open that, it looked nice, but I expected like the devs to be working on it to bring like some more stuff into that. But the updates were happening, and sometimes it was like you're watching. I mean, you download the demo. Like before going to sleep, you want to watch it next day in the morning, and the update is happening, and it happened a couple of times. The demo just doesn't work because the game got updated.
Right.
So I think you probably need to like bring the older version of the game to the Steam settings. And yeah, it's actually bugged. Sometimes it's demos which are like working correctly. You can see like this line with being split up for rounds, and it works. If you move from one round to the next round, it works. But sometimes it's just bugged, and I have no idea how it works, because I think you can have like both working and not really working demos from the one tournament. That's difficult, but I think that the demo watching is not the priority for the devs to do anything with that. So it will not be fixed anytime soon. They will be bringing something else besides that, because usually people who are playing the game, they don't need to watch demos.
No, true. It's more of a pull thing, yeah.
Yes, exactly. Because if the people, if like the casual player wants to learn something, he will go to the YouTube with everything prepared. And as we all know, back in the times we only had frag spray tutorial. Same for me, actually, because I started like it long time ago. But like, with the level increasing in game, you need the demo watcher to be great. And actually, talking about the frag movies, we actually have one or two movie makers left in the Counter-Strike. Like in the earlier days, there was like great edits, as you mentioned, not just this stream highlight going one by one. There was some, I'm a big fan of Sharks, and there was a frag movie of him. There's like multiple frag movies of him, and it's not just the kills going like 4 kills, the next clip 5 kills. There's some, how to say that, there's like the moments from dude like sitting at the PC on the tournament, he motivating his team.
The outside of the game stuff,
Yes.
When he did that speech, when he was telling them all, B5 fingers,
yes. That's one, this one, exactly that one. And it's a crazy moment. It's a great thing to have. And the music is good. And, when you have it all in the same exact video, it's amazing. It's like absolute cinema to watch.
Yes, agreed.
I used to watch so many frag movies. I was I came up in Source, and so there was this website that I'm sure I'm gonna jog some people's memory if they were following it. It was called the Movie Vault.
Yeah.
It's called the movievault.net.
Yeah.
And I actually used to play in their deathmatch every month just because they're free for all like Dust 2 deathmatch, just to get the highest rank, so that I would have a VIP, like the paid account.
That's so nerdy. Okay.
Yeah. So I would actually exclusively use theirs and just farm in there, just so I could like watch the videos in like 720p or whatever it was. Because I remember if you had a basic account, you would I just don't think you had certain privileges. Like I think you couldn't even watch like all the movies and stuff like that upon release or something like that. I think VIPs got them maybe earlier, and you got to watch it in HD quality. And so I feel like, and the thing is with frag movies is that I wasn't really like, it's just the visceral experience of watching a dude owning for 8 minutes with cool music synced to it, sometimes caster highlights occasionally, all of that. Because I think right now, if you search up something like, well, maybe Donk's an exception, but if I searched up like magixx highlights, you'd get a handful of clips of them just being stitched together. But back in the day, I feel like there was a frag movie for a lot of obscure players just because some editor would like that player, and then they would almost get an extra bonus of cultural impact, because then if they had a really good frag movie maker, like I knew people that I didn't even know if they were good players. Like this guy Kodiak, I think was he from the Netherlands or something like that? I forgot where he's even from. And I just remember watching his videos and I was like, this guy must be fucking sick. But then I don't even think he had that sick of a career, honestly. But he just had a really good video. And I think the most legendary one that inspired me the most was Dirty Secret. Dirty Secret for Team Hyper in CS.
Oh, this was the guy who had like a mad deagle or something, right?
Yeah, I think the right person. He was just like no scoping people in matches all the time, and he was supposed to be kind of like the next up and coming NA opper. He was really good. Like he played Invite in Source and everything, and he had a couple other good teammates. But I watched so many frag movies back in the day. There were, I mean, God, I remember some of them so vividly, and the way I even found out about like Linkin Park back in the day was because of frag movies. So I learned about it from frag movies before people even talked about it in school. Because it was just the first. Immediately, they're just in there. So I think I think the art of it is not dead, but it's definitely like there's a few guys out there that make them, and they do a good job. And I think is it Veer, or I think
Veer was the guy who did like Flashpoint and stuff. Yeah, he did a bunch of tournament events.
He does a lot of event frag movies, which I think are really good because it allows you to watch basically all the best moments of that tournament within 10 minutes.
Yes.
But I think the frag movies for individual players need to make a bigger comeback, because I mean, there's certain players, for example, that the eye test is so much better than their stats. I mean, the example we were talking about last week is Calix. Like Calix would just once every 3 times that they go to his bomb site have the most disgusting like 7 bullets, 3 kills kind of moment where he's just burst, and they're all dead on a gun round. And that would probably elevate people's stock like that, when in reality, as an anchor, he did get removed from Eternal Fire because they thought Jota was better. But Jota's just not as flashy of a killer. So I think the guys that have cool aim should be rewarded. Like, unironically, I know this sounds kind of ridiculous because I was saying that he should probably be removed from Astralis. Borup's aim is so good. When Borup is in a really manageable situation, his first bullet accuracy is so fast, and it's kind of like it's why Skulls is probably overrated too, because his aim is so good. His aim is just so good, but then sometimes the decision making is like where they fall apart, or like they just can't handle their bomb site, like the hit, because they get too flashed. But like if they're not flashing, there's a reason those guys are professional players. I'll say that.
Yeah, I'll also say as well, if you actually even just take the literal example magixx gave and just type in Shock's frag movie, you're going to get loads of CSGO ones. Mate, instantly I remember all these. The one from Finks, the one from Silent. Like, if you go back, these are all bangers. They're all really good. It's exactly what you said. It's just like music, really good editing, though, high quality, like, graphics. It's not like the annoying ones in 1.6 where it's all like dubstep and flashbangs go off your face. It's actually like smooth. It's really smoothly edited together. Yeah. No, it's dope. It's actually giving me a little bit of like a fucking nostalgia trip, because it's actually like 8 or 9 years ago, some of these movies. Yeah. Right, okay. Let's go to... Isn't also, it... go on.
Also, I would also add that Vera is doing a great job at frag moving, that is not only bringing the 4Ks, 5Ks clutches, he's also bringing the some cheeky plays.
All right.
He has some videos of high IQ plays.
Right.
And he also editing everything in a great way, and it's a great guy to watch.
allow me to take you away from the show for just a mere moment to let you know about one of our wonderful sponsors here at Last Free Nation and a discount that you can get. It's, of course, Turtle Beach. You can see it on the screen, but I'm also wearing a pair of them. These are the Stealth 700s. They've actually got an innovation in them, which is they are the industry's first ever cross-play dual wireless transmitter system. So basically what you can do is you can plug them into two devices at once. So say you are playing on your console, but then you have something going on the PC, you can just click a button and switch between them. You don't have to to unplug them, go and plug them in over there. It means that if you're doing something, you could also take a call at the same time. You can control music, etc. So it's actually a really great way to coordinate all your different media devices, etc., and be able to get extra functionality out of them without it being annoying and having to change things up. And also, by the way, if you look at them, they've got the nice closed back so that you don't hear music blaring out of them or the game late at night if you've got your family in the other room and you some hardcore late night gaming. As you can see, I've got a massive head, but they fit very nicely over the top. What I like is I don't like headphones that have like a really bad fabric there that get really sweaty when you play. That doesn't have them. I actually really like this ones. They feel really snug and nice. Also, they go around the ear like this. So automatically, by the way, that even blocks some sound out already. But also, it's not the case that they like crush your ears or go on top of the ears. They go all the way around. They fit really nicely, but at the same time, this keeps them nice and snug on. They're not going to slip off or slide in any way. And generally, I always used to just go for the really high-end, super expensive headphones because I always thought gaming headphones, they're usually really cynically made. Build quality is not very good. This is not the case. The build quality here is really good. And for the price point, I actually think these are excellent. So for a limited time only, our fans watching, you can get 10% off your entire order with the code, as you can see on screen, CSGO at turtlebeach.com. So don't miss out. Stay warm and level up your game with 10% off at turtlebeach.com using the code CSGO. New year, new gaming gear. Right, magixx, what is your ugly point? What's it going to be?
Well, it's a little thing. Maybe not too many teams have faced that, but I would say that ESL sometimes they're changing the schedule during the tournament. An example, like we have been told the exact timing of the match, and we're like making the plans on when do we want to prepare for this match. Like an example, if it's a game like it's 4 p.m. or 6 p.m., we will be preparing in the morning. But there was a situation when we have been told that we are playing the third match of a day, but later in the day when we went to go to sleep, we're getting a message that we're playing the first game of a day, and it's being moved, and that's a bad thing to have in terms of competition. I do understand that if you're a tournament operator, you want to have the biggest names playing during the prime time of like the time zone when the people are watching the tournament. But in terms of competitive, like fair play, it's like it's bullshit, because we had that in a pro league, because it was in 2033, I think.
2023, yeah.
Yeah, we have been playing with Patsy and Siren back then. So it happened to us that we have been told that we are playing the third match of a day, and later we are being moved to the first. And instead of preparations during the morning, we have our coach and we have Chopper have to wake up to prepare in the night, and that's fucking shit. And also the World Cup is also an event which is hosted by ESL, and we also had it there. Like there was like this format half year ago when there's 16 teams playing best of 3 with like lower seeded teams, and like 7 of them are making it to the playoffs, and the teams who lost, they are playing the last chance bracket.
Yeah.
Best of ones, like 3 matches best of ones, and there's a 1 match of playoffs in the same day in the evening, and we have been told that we are playing like on the next day. It was like 19th of July, is the day when there's 3 playoffs matches, but we have been moved to the day before when this lower bracket being played. So there is a lot of best of ones, best of ones, best of ones. Ой, блядь, it's moving again. You can move me. So there's a lot of best of ones being played, and we have to play like after them, while we have been scheduled to play the different time in the beginning, in the very beginning. I strongly believe that there has to be a pretty like strict schedule of matches, and there's like 1 or 2 rules that pretty obvious, and usually it is being applied to the tournaments. If you're playing the last match of the day, you cannot be playing the first match
Yes.
of the next day. That's the utter bullshit, and that's actually a bad thing to have if they're moving uh, the matches according to like to the views.
Yes. Thoughts, Maui?
I mean, yeah, that's just. I feel like that's inexcusable. I don't even know what leads to it happening. Actually, I mean, I can say from the analyst perspective, or even if I'm casting the event, like any broadcast side of it, if we get moved the night before, we're already a little bit frustrated with it, just because we're like, oh, I was planning to sleep at this time, and because I want to get 7 hours of sleep, and that I want to wake up, 4 hours before my match or before my call time, so I can get breakfast, do a little bit more last minute preparation, think about what I'm going to say. And if I got moved from I'll say this, a late game to an early game, and it's 3 matches in a day, that's the difference in me waking up like 9 hours apart. Like that's a huge change to how I'm going to approach my day and how I'm even going to sleep the night before. So I can completely empathize with that. And I'm not even the one that has to compete for 4 or 5 hours. I'm the one that's just going to say some stuff. And it's just that, if I'm off for us, if we're off our game, it's like we'll say something stupid. We'll say something that maybe we don't. It's like, that's not exactly the wording that I was looking for, but I didn't even know I was going to cover this match until 9 hours ago. Okay, so yeah, even and then that's how you make a really bad hot take, and then you're like, like, is that exactly what I meant to say? Well, it's out in the world now, so it is what it is. But yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting you bring it up with ESL, because I always thought from behind the, like, not behind the scenes, but from in the scene, that they were supposed to be a standard here for just making sure that things are easier for players. And I know that there probably are complaints with every TO in some way, shape, or form, but for them to be switching your times that drastically to a day, also, like, that's massive. No, I don't know if people will get that right away, but I think the easiest thing to do to tell everybody is almost like, imagine your professor who said you have a week for this paper to be due, and then they say, oh, by the way, it's due 12 hours earlier than you thought. That's basically the same thing as playing a match. It's almost the exact same. You just have to be ready, because all of the prep, like playing the match, is sure, it's what you do in the moment when you're taking the test, but it's also like everything leading up to it. And some people cram a little bit more. Some people are gonna stretch out how their work goes, but they usually, it just adds unneeded stress. Like, there's no way, shape, or form that it doesn't affect somebody negatively. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that to light.
I would say, yeah, go on.
It actually,
Yeah, go on.
it actually only happened during the ESL hosted events. Like, there was not a lot of TOs we have played tournaments besides the ESL, and the only ESL was doing that. Like the Blast, we always had a pretty strict schedule that we were like easier to predict, and the other, like Fissure events, it was just better, like in this like particular way. So that's a bad thing to have, I think, for ESL.
In English, we have that idiom, which is supposed to be where when someone's really dedicated, you say in Counter-Strike, you'd say you eat Counter-Strike, you sleep Counter-Strike, you live Counter-Strike. It's like everything's That's not supposed to be literal. It's just like a cool thing to say. In this analogy, it's like that is what they're making you do, because I agree. That will affect everything. Literally, if think about it, because in the modern day, we've gone out of what it was 10 years ago. In the modern day, you play one match a day and you know roughly when it is. So the whole day now as a professional that's the time of day where I want to peak and be at my absolute best. And I'm going to do things like I'm going to make sure my sleep means that like I don't get up too early, because then what if the game starts at like 8 p.m. and it goes to like triple overtime on map 3? I don't want to go to bed too late though. What if I don't get enough sleep, etc.? So first of all, it's going to throw that off. Then, as you say, it's going to, by the way, the biggest one to me is probably eating, because actually if I think my match is going to be at like 12 o'clock or something like that, I'll change very much when I have like the breakfast or when we meet for something, or do you have a snack before? If suddenly it's like 4 hours later or 8 hours later, you have to completely recalculate what you're doing. And remember, in a team, there's not one player. It's not a 1v1 game. You've got 5 players and the coach. You've got to coordinate all these people, which is hard enough anyway. Everyone knows that some players stay up too late or don't get up in the morning when you call them to. So it's hard enough to decide as it is. And then the prep part is no minor thing. One of the things I always used to think was a nightmare back in the day is actually when people like Astralis were in their prime. That is when every day ended at like at 10 or 11 p.m. and then the day would start at 9 in the morning. And so that meant I always used to think, when do the fans think you watch the demo? Because there's a million stories back then where like the coach and IGL just go, look, because like, especially if you're a smaller team, by the way, if this is like the one semi-final I'm going to be in all year, fuck it, maybe I should just get 3 hours sleep and watch demos for 6 hours. Maybe that's my only chance to win this match. But that's an insane thing to ask of a human being. Like at a bare minimum, like we're not in prison, surely we could just have some sleep. You know what I mean? Like, this is ridiculous. So, no, and also, lastly, I'll put this out there. The worst thing is, no fan is going to know the story that magixx just told. It's only the team's going to know that. So in history, when we look back and we go onto Liquipedia, people could go to an event and they could go, oh, Spirit was shit at this event. Look at that. They were really way worse. They had such a terrible game. For all we know, they had like 4 hours sleep, or the game was like they had half as much preparation or no preparation. Who knows what went on behind the scenes? That doesn't show in the match. The match just shows the result, and we all have to pretend they tried 100% and they were 100% level, and that's who they are, because that is at the end of the day what will represent you. No, I agree. It's one of those things that if people don't know about it in public, it'll never get fixed too. It'll just keep happening behind the scenes accidentally. Because by the way, I understand the scheduling problems. For example, like if one game just lasts forever, you know, like we have one of those maps that goes an hour and a half because it's triple, quadruple overtime. That's okay. It's okay to push a match back because you couldn't do anything about it. But we're talking about when you're telling someone like the day before or in the original schedule, here's when you're going to play. I think that could affect a lot of teams. Yeah, it could throw a lot of people off, mate. I'm with you on that one. Right, Maui, what is your ugly point?
Mine is that it was. I guess we knew this before, but then it was looked at again. That the invites, or it was just officially announced that the invites for the Blast Austin Major are using the VRS points from April 7th. And for context, the actual major is June 3rd to 22nd, and the MRQs, which are kind of like the new RMRs, are April 14th to 14th to 17th. And I mean, it has to be done because of these MRQs essentially. But the ugly point about this being at this time is that we have a whole month in between the invites of the major and the actual major happening. And another reason this is just really awkward is because if you look at the tier 1 schedule, that basically means that the invites are sent out in the middle of PGL. Hold on. I think it's PGL Bucharest. So PGL Bucharest just has a couple days that are played, and then the invites are sent. And so, just so it's clear, here are all the events that will not, despite being in this season, not contribute to the Blast Austin Majors invites. That will not include the Yala Compass event. It will not include IEM Melbourne, Blast Rivals, the Astana event, the IEM Dallas event, and then that's pretty much it. For relevant tournaments, that's practically it. And I mean, the Astana event is a $1.25 million tournament, and also the PGL Bucharest tournament is a $1.25 million tournament. And it's all, and
that's the prize purse of the major. That's massive. Yeah, that's massive.
Yeah, they have huge prize pools, and they're not even going to count for points for the Austin Major. as far as I'm aware, they will count towards the second major of
Right.
the year, but the points by then are going to be fairly depleted. I mean, they still will matter, but it's like
decay, yeah.
There's decay. Yeah, there's decay in what the points mean. So it's kind of like in what felt like a season that made so much sense on paper, because the invite has to happen 2 months, or practically like a month and a half before the actual major. We have this weird shadow realm of tournaments in that span, which they are important, but contextualizing their importance is difficult because we're basically saying, oh yeah, this is kind of like a preview of form for the major, but it doesn't affect the major. It will affect the second major, but only a little bit. Like it's just like, I just hate things that don't come off the tongue easily. If it takes that much wordage to explain why these tournaments do matter but don't really matter, then I think the system has already failed as an entertainment product. So it's almost just like the only events that matter for people going into this major are the Blast Bounty, Katowice, Cluj-Napoca, and then the Blast Open Lisbon event. And for there to only be, practically speaking, what is that? 5 events or 4 events? Like that's very slim. That's like Kato, Cluj, EPL 5. For there to be 5 events after the last major, and then the invites are sent for the next one, it's just way too short. That's all I mean. Like it's practically 3 months of play, and your results at the previous major are determining whether you're getting to the following major. And it always felt like it was at least with the way the last RMRs went, I didn't like that it was almost like 5 months straight of a major circuit, because it was like RMRs, it was RMRs into directly the opening stage of the major, into the legend stage, and then the playoffs. I didn't like that that was all like bunched up, but this is just like almost too distanced now. And I don't like this weird 1.5 month period where the tournaments don't really matter, but kind of do at the same time.
What do you think, magixx?
Well, I think it makes sense in terms of approaching the events, because lots of teams who really need the points to get invited, they have to do their best in a short period of time, and whatever like happens right after the events like doesn't matter like at all. I mean, because of the points decay, it will be like, it's a weird thing to have like we have invitations for the major that early before that. I mean, that early before the tournament. Like there's more than 1 month actually, like almost 2 months between the invites and the major, and 2 months in terms of like this schedule is a big difference, because we have a bunch of events going right after these invites being revealed. It would have been better if they're like sent like after a couple events more. It would be more fair, but we can have a team that probably can fluke their like result into the playoffs of Kato maybe, or they can, or some tier 2 team can make a great result at Cluj, because there's not a lot of big names there, because we have maybe I think 4 highest ranked team in the world not attending this event, but it has a big prize pool, and as far as I know, like the prize pool affects the VRS system, so we can have a like not the greatest team just to make it to the playoffs or deep into the tournament and get their prize money, and with the prize money they're gaining the points. And if you're taking the pool of 5 events only, it will screw up the actual invites.
Yes. Yeah, there's a few things here. Like, first of all, on the last thing he said there, there's actually an episode that came out when I was recording this today of Feed the Trolls that I did with Threat from NIP that was about the whole VRS system and the invites and stuff. And one of the points he makes, if you go and read the GitHub where it explains how the points are calculated, is there is some kind of like a tiny almost elo system, but that affects like a tiny like 1% of the rank or something. So essentially, one of the issues, this might be, let's just say why there's a certain loophole that some teams qualified through, is it actually also doesn't matter who your opponent opponent is, Maui. That's the crazy thing. It just matters the prize money of the tournament and the fact that it's a LAN match that you play. So essentially, magixx is right. The teams that go to that event that all the big dogs pulled out of, if one of those, let's say like a team that's like the 10th best in the world, but the top 4 teams are out and they fuck around and win like 2 key matches extra, they might be in the semis or the final. So suddenly they might be in like a really amazing position for points. But they have the same points now as like someone who had to battle all the best teams in the world to get to the semis at Katowice, where every team is there and the pressure's crazy. And so, that already makes it a little bit dodgy. And then also, yes, the fewer amount of events you have, the smaller sample size, the more a one-off fluke run will give you loads of points. Whereas the more events you have, it's going to normalise it, isn't it, and average it out over it. And it's going to mean that you're in a scenario where you're going to be able to prove, even if you didn't get the fluke run like him, that you're better than him overall. I'll even add this in as well. An obvious angle for me is this even makes me wonder about events like Blast Bounty. I told you, obviously I'm cool with it, Maui, because it's an interesting format, it's different, it's not the same event every time. Yeah, but if we're only going to have 5 lands before the major, I don't know if I want one where like people pick who their opponent is. Like, what? What is that? Like, maybe I just want a normal tournament seeded 1 to 16 and we'll just see who wins the tournament at the end. Like, remember, the bizarre thing about that format is, on the one hand, you were incentivized to pick the hardest team so you get the biggest bounty, but then I actually think Eternal Fire, once they got rolling, in that semis, they clearly tried to pick one of the teams they thought they could beat. There's a reason they didn't pick Spirit. They picked G2 because they looked a bit dodgy, and then Na'Vi didn't look like they were in peak form. They were picking them to beat them to make the final, which they did. So I just wouldn't want that to decide if you make the major or how high up you are. I want it to be like how good you are and how overall, like, in an ideal world, I'm with you. I think like 6, 7, that's the sort of number I'd like before the major. Yeah, and also just think to myself, I'll give you the example, Maui, because we had it last year. It was a fucking nightmare. We went to that tournament, Elisa Masters in Finland, just a small tournament with like a few good teams. The best 2 teams there was Mongols and Heroic, who were ranked number 11 and number 13 in the world. Mongols had just come off like looking fucking sick in all these like recent tournaments, like won the Yala Compass, etc. If you remember, Heroic had just had semi-finals of IEM Rio, so everyone was like, oh, awesome. They didn't win the tournament, guys. Ents, brand new Ents roster that no one ever saw, beat both those teams, won the tournament, including a best of 5 of Heroic. Think about Heroic at the major. They were almost in the semis. So you think to yourself, oh my goodness, I'd love to see how they do at the major. Oh, wait, they're not in the major. Fuck, forget about it. And now it's been months. It's been like 3 or 4 months now. We haven't seen that team play a LAN. So all that hype just was, in a way, that tournament actually killed some of the hype for the major. It actually turned out, by the way, Heroic and Mongols were really good. But you wouldn't know it if you watched that tournament. You would actually think like the whole hype died, wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. The disconnect is where it's just so awkward. Before, I'd say the thing about the season before actually was that the tournament after the major always felt, and it was usually IEM Dallas and it was Chengdu last year. It was just kind of like, how much does this tournament even matter? Like, is this kind of like a random cup? You know, like what is going on here?
Yes.
But now we have the build up to the major being the tournaments that are kind of confusing and whether or not they actually matter.
Indeed. Right. Let's go then to the last point of the show. And this one is one that is actually, I've come up with this point in honor of you, magixx, because I think you are one of the best examples of what I'm about to describe. And so it's the concept that in the modern day, we have all these different stats. And part of having all these different stats is they feed them into the HLTV rating. So that actually, in theory, it's a formula. Look, I'm sure it's made with good intentions. They're trying to actually balance it. They've even changed it, 1.0, 2.0, 2.1. There's going to be a 3.0. If you've seen, by the way, they've intentionally tried to change it how people want. So, for example, everyone who hated on James because he saved all the time, if you saw it, his rankings went down if you go in 2.1. They made it so you can't just save as much if you're not going to do anything. They're trying to make it so this rating approximates how well you played. It's almost like an expert, but it's a computer looking at different factors and doing a calculation, and it comes out with a number. But the problem goes like this. At the end, when it puts the number out, I think people really in Counter-Strike forget that it was a formula and that a human decided which metric matters more and, which one gets half or double or 2 times. And they forget that, and they almost act like it's not the scoreboard, how many frags you got, how many rounds you... They think it's just the number. And one of the weird things people do is they really think that someone with the higher HLTV rating always played better than the player with the lower HLTV rating. And my issue with that is that doesn't even work for certain roles. Maybe that works for, I don't know, the superstar player who just is killing everyone. Maybe that can sort of tell you who was better. Like this guy was a lot better because, he had like 0.2 higher rating than the other guy. That's a massive gap. Yeah, that probably means I played really well and you played really bad if we have the difference. But I actually think for people like you, magixx, and actually even though he has a similar name, back in CSGO, I always thought in Vitality, magixx, the player for Vitality, these are players that rating doesn't work to show you if they were good or played better. Because I always used to think magixx in Vitality would have like a 1.07 rating, which sounds like nothing. But then you'd watch the game and he would like control the whole T side. He'd have like the key kill in the middle of the game, or he'd like hold a position and get like a key flank kill off, or he'd push through. And then you watch the game. Look, he's never getting a 3K. He'd never have a highlight that was going to be some crazy shit. But you watch the game and you're like, he was like the second best player on their team. But then the ranking would tell you 1.07, like, oh, he's getting carried. Oh, he's not even a good player. Like Zemu's just got no help, etc. I would be like, no help. This guy's fucking probably the best anchor player in the world. So I think for you, if people think how you played that major final, magixx, in that final, yes, you also had the life game. You did like shoot them all in the head with the AK. But I noticed actually, even when you were having the life game, you didn't change your playing style. You don't do the thing where you constantly jiggle pick and just take every duel. You're playing for time, or you're moving around the box to draw him in and get the other person so you can shoot them, or you're doing crazy moves with like movement stuff, or you're going on top of the hut and then dropping down. You're doing all these extra things that don't show up on the scoreboard and can actually affect the game. Like some of those moves in that first map of the final was definitely fucking FaZe Clan up. My favourite one ever was the one where you went lower on Nuke and you were behind the silo and they were going to come 2 people down the ramp and they wanted to plant the bomb. Now, normal player, I can tell you, magixx, if I just get a young player out of FPL or just a star rifler, they're going to peak that instantly because they think, I'm going to headshot him. And then they think when they headshot, I've won the round. You actually guaranteed the round was won because you never ever let them fight you. You just drew them in and peaked them, so they had to keep going around the silo like this. And by the time they got down there, it wouldn't have mattered if they'd have killed you. Your teammate can be there and they couldn't plant the bomb. Like, that doesn't show up on the scoreboard because the scoreboard can't see the kills. It can't see, like, there's no metric for, like, delayed the opponent or wasted his time or made him do a misrotate. That doesn't exist in the game. So I feel like people will look at the game and sometimes a player that just fragged has like a 1.12 rating and they're like, wow, he had a really good game. But maybe magixx, or back in the day, one of my favourites obviously was Perfecto or Navi, or you can go with Inters on the old Cloud9. Sometimes these guys do a move that can't show on a scoreboard, but it wins you a round in a game even, or keeps you in a half, or makes a site just harder to take. So what do you think about this aspect? Obviously it plays very well to you because you're not the stats monster normally except for the final. What do you think of this aspect?
That's a good point. I think that like on these modern days, stats are more of a brought up to talk shit or praise the player, not to be like counting the actual impact in any specific role or any specific player. So it's just made for the community to be a topic to talk on, you know, so they can like make more threads, more noticing, whatever is needed, and they're not like bringing any value. And actually, like, I think if you really want to compare the stats, you cannot be comparing the players playing different positions or roles. I do say that the roles and the positions are a different thing, because you can be playing the same position, like in example on this side on some map, you can be playing the same position as some player, but your role might be different. Maybe if you're a second caller, you're bringing up an idea and you're using the people to make your idea happen. You're more probably to get a kill on that, maybe, or to play it perfectly, compared to the player who is just following on a call. Like an example, your role might be the first guy going onto the late round execs, and it's like not something where you can bring up a stats, but in the beginning of the round you are just maybe a lobby lurker, you know?
Right.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it's a hard thing, but if you do want to compare the players, you have to count that also, that there's a roles, there's a positions, and there's a tasks that players have to do. And if you want to compare me an example, you have to be using like some Maisie Norbert players,
right?
Because they're also guys who are like playing bad spots and going into the T side, they're not playing the SAR positions, and they're like being used like on exec to like make space usually than the go out and kill multiple players, because there's a lot of different scenarios. And also the one more problem of the rating itself is that actually, I think it's the biggest issue of current rating is there is no difference if you get a kill on eco or on bar round.
Yeah.
Because I think we've all seen the stats. I think it was Ime. I think that the gun round stats are the most important thing that should be affecting your rating. It's when you're playing M4 against an AK,
Yes.
it's like the actual round which matters. And if you kill 5 fucking Glokes with M4, why does it inflate your rating
Sure.
that hard? Because I think it was like below 1.1 rating on by rounds for him, and 1.7 against half by or eco, and that's making his average rating being 1.15, 1.20, and it affects his like
Yes.
overall stats in terms of.
I mean, I have the numbers. It was at Rio where HLTV gave him the MVP. He on full buy gun rounds he had a 1.06, and on full buy versus ecos 1.73.
Fucking hell.
So it's just so
And
those rounds
you just think of this. Think of what his best map is, Mirage, where he plays Connector. That's Glock City. You're just getting run down by people rushing you. Coming from under. That's where you get like 3Ks and 4Ks all day long against eco, of course. Yeah.
I mean, at the same tournament, for comparison's sake, like I forgot what I thought at the time. I forgot if I thought Bit or JL was going to win it, honestly. But both of them on gun rounds Bit had a 1.29 on gun rounds in that tournament, which is insane.
That's
mental.
mental.
And then JL had a 1.20 on gun rounds at that tournament. And it's like they didn't farm as hard on ecos. Like for example, Bit had a 1.38, but it's like Ema just did so well on anti-ecos that he ended up with the highest rating at the tournament.
Yes.
It's just like
Put it this way, here's the obvious example. I agree with you. Like, if that makes it inflated to the point he has like a 1.2 rating, this is why you can't just compare directly. That makes it sound like he's fucking Nico. And look, him as a good player, but he's not Nico. Like, I don't care. If Nico has a 1.2 rating, it's going to be some fucking insane shit in that bit. It's going to be like a frag movie itself.
This is important also because I've seen magixx watching his demo on like Ancient, just on A. He'll just like buy time, and then Chopper will rotate in with an MP9 and get all the kills, and magixx gets 0 kills but used all of his grenades.
Also, there's another thing.
I've literally seen this happen.
I think he made a really great point as well. People think that like the position is the role, magixx, you're right. Whereas like another thing about your play is like sometimes on CT side, you're holding like floor of nuke with an MP9. It's like I'd much rather have an M4 there and be the star player, of course.
Not sometimes. It's always MP9.
Okay.
Sometimes I have matches or tournaments where I don't remember playing M4. But I'm fine.
Yeah, I agree. Good one. Yeah, exactly, because Eastern Shiro needs that AWP. We all know it. We've got to get Shiro's AWP. It's important. Right, okay. That's it. That's it.
Well, actually, I just wanted to ask... I don't really have any more points. I just wanted, while we have magixx here, I just want to know what it felt like playing that major finals and having, I'm just gonna say it's a life series. It's a life series in it. So what did it feel like?
Okay, I was actually answering that before the show. Thorin asked me something about the finals. I think you were not here at that moment. Honestly, it was the same game. Like, it's the same game, but like in terms of gameplay, I felt like I was like more of aggressive at some points, but like overall the gameplay was similar. I was just killing people. Like, going into the nuke, I've played it 25-10, but the scenarios which I was playing are like pretty much the same as usually on practice or other officials. But things just was going my way, and that's it. And I also was thinking, like, what was different? Maybe I did some ritual or something else or whatever to perform insanely. Maybe I opened some chakra or whatever. But no, actually, it was the same game, and I was just playing it, and it just worked for me. And I could have played like I was doing at practice, because I'm a practice beast usually.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes, I mean, the actual thing is sometimes you're playing an official game and you're starting in some specific spot, and you're not getting used to see an enemy for 6 rounds, and after that it's like 15 minutes 10-15 minutes of like 6 rounds, you're seeing moving pixels on your screen, and you might be scared of them because you couldn't feel some blood starting the game. It's actual thing for some people, I believe, because it's like making you not ready for a duel, not ready for an execute coming to you.
Yes. I've got one question. This will end the show, which is, in that final, if I was in that 4v2 or whatever, 5v2 at the end of the game, I would be like, we've won. It's over. Like, this is it. What the fuck were you thinking when they pulled off that insane comeback where like Robs was doing like jumping no scope and so? What was that moment like?
The jump scope moment?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, but yeah. Well,
You got the dink on him, didn't you?
Yeah. So it was like the 4v2 situation. There was some trades happening on the map, and there was a call to go out long late, like 4-3, 4-4 maybe.
Yeah.
And I remember like we had Duncan Longhouse, Frozen gets splashed in. He's not hitting anything because he's probably shaking. And I'm picking up a knob and holding corner because there's Brock and Kerrigan alive on CT side, waiting for Kerrigan to strafe. He's strafing the corner, picking us, and I'm waiting for him. Now we 4v2, I mean 4v3, because there's Rainer-ups on B side somewhere, and he's missing his shots. It's 4v2, and I feel like I have an up, and I'm going to the platform, and like there's like mathematically it's not a possible round to lose.
No.
And I'm decreasing the chances by taking the spot with the weapon, which also decreases the chance of them winning round. And I'm just holding the only place that they can come through and kill my like team. And after that, one dice, second dice, we're 2v2. I'm holding that. He's getting killed by a jump shot. And then I'm going like, what the fuck just happened?
Gosh.
I'm taking the Oak somewhere on the ground and going to fight them. I'm killing the first one. Then Rob strikes into me and I dinked him with an Oak. If that would have been AK, I would have won that. But it was fucking Oak for minus 97.
In the major final. I love it.
That's fucking crazy. And it was like the first time in the playoffs when I said something not related to the game during the match into the TeamSpeak. I was said, wow, I fucking dinked him. Fuck this. And that's it. Like, I'm not showing that any emotions or something else. And the most absurd thing, which is not really related to that, I was playing a Faceit match a couple of days ago, and the exactly fucking same thing happened.
Oh, okay.
I was on the platform holding long,
Okay.
and there's some guy jumping over the smoking city and hitting a jumping no scope with the knob, killing my bomb, and I'm pushing long, killing one guy.
Yes.
And I'm running out of time. And I had like deja vu in that exact moment. It was like, what the fuck is going on? It was a crazy game. Like, it was 60 rounds or so, and they were hitting that. And thanks to Shiro.
Yeah. Unfortunately, as well, I feel like if I was a player in FPL and I'm playing anyone from Spirit, I'm always going for that jumping no-scope just to trigger them. Just it'll piss them off if you hadn't, Luckily, here's the thing. Luckily, you won the game. It's all good.
Yep.